Story 1. My wife keeps throwing divorce in my face. Marriage is supposed to be a partnership, a balance between two people who love and support each other. But what happens when one partner constantly wields the word divorce like a weapon? That's what I've been dealing with for the past year and a half. My wife and I have been married for 4 years, together for 5, and we have a beautiful 4-year-old daughter. I've known my wife since we were teenagers, so our history goes back a long way. For most of our marriage, I thought we had a solid foundation. I work hard to provide for my family, often putting in long hours to make sure my wife and daughter have everything they need. My wife chose not to return to work after our daughter was born, which I fully supported at the time. However, over the past 18 months, the cracks in our relationship have deepened. We argue more frequently, at least once or twice a month. And while I've tried to de-escalate things, most of these fights aren't even started by me. To make matters worse, my wife has developed a pattern. Every time we argue, she threatens divorce. The first time she said it, I was shocked. It happened after my sister called to ask if she could stay with us for a week due to relationship problems. I agreed, knowing my sister needed support. My wife was furious. She reminded me that this was our home, and she should have been consulted first. While I understood her frustration, I pointed out that she had let a friend stay with us for 5 weeks not long before without any discussion, and that friend hadn't lifted a finger to help around the house. My sister, on the other hand, is wonderful with our daughter and pitched in by cooking, cleaning, and babysitting during her short stay. I thought we had moved past that argument, but it seemed to linger beneath the surface. After that, our fights became more frequent, often over trivial matters. She'd accuse me of not being a good father or spending too much time at work. I would remind her that my long hours were necessary to support our family, especially since she refused to return to work or pursue further education. I've suggested therapy and counseling several times, hoping we could get an unbiased third party to help us navigate our issues. But my wife always dismissed the idea, claiming we didn't need it. Last night was the breaking point. We were arguing again about my work hours when she ended the conversation with, "I want a divorce." For the first time, I didn't try to reason with her. Instead, I stood up and told her the only reason I worked so much was to support her spending habits. Admittedly, I said my money instead of our money, which was wrong, but I was frustrated. Despite our agreement to budget for bills, savings, and fun money, she constantly overspends on things we don't need. After that, I packed my daughter's belongings, told my wife I'd had enough, and left for my sister's house. It's been 2 days since I left. My wife has been calling and texting nonstop, apologizing and saying she didn't mean it. She says she's ready to go to counseling and promises to change, but I don't know if I can keep doing this. I love her, and she's a good mother to our daughter, but the constant fighting, the threats, and the lack of accountability have worn me down. Update: unfortunately, this story doesn't have a happy ending. After I made my initial post, I took some time to think. I decided I needed to have one final, serious conversation with my wife. We sat down, and I told her that I couldn't continue living like this. I explained that the constant fighting and divorce threats were toxic, not just for us, but for our daughter. She agreed, promised to stop using the word divorce, and even agreed to couples therapy. At first, things seemed to improve. Therapy helped us address some underlying issues, and she started making positive changes. She found a part-time job, made some new friends, and picked up a hobby she enjoyed. I started to believe that maybe we could make things work. But then, a few months later, we had another argument. This time, it was about plans for our daughter that my wife had overlooked. She had made plans with her new coworkers and forgotten about an important event we had scheduled for our daughter. I was frustrated, but I tried to keep my cool. At the end of the argument, she muttered under her breath, "I knew marrying you was a mistake." I froze. I asked her to repeat herself, and she looked me in the eye and said, "I should have divorced you years ago." In that moment, I didn't recognize the woman standing in front of me. The person I had married, the woman I had built a life with, seemed like a stranger. I walked away, took my daughter to the event alone, and decided then and there that I couldn't do this anymore. I filed for legal separation. The terms were straightforward. We would remain legally married during the separation period, continue therapy as individuals and as a couple, and share custody of our daughter. I moved in with my sister and took on the majority of the parenting responsibilities. One day, I needed my wife to watch our daughter. I had given her a week's notice, and she agreed. When I arrived at the house that morning, there was an unfamiliar car in the driveway. At first, I thought it might belong to a friend, but when I rang the doorbell, a shirtless young man no older than 20 answered the door. He asked who I was and what I wanted. I asked for my wife, and she came to the door wearing a robe. The look on her face, shock, guilt, and sadness, told me everything I needed to know. In 3 months, when the separation period ends, I'll be filing for divorce. My daughter is my priority, and I refuse to let her grow up in a toxic environment. Story 2. Am I wrong for enforcing my custody agreement? My sister Lily, 35, had my niece Emma, now 9, when she was 26. At the time, Lily and her boyfriend were both fresh out of rehab for heroin addiction. Unfortunately, they relapsed, and Lily used throughout her pregnancy. When Emma was 2 months old, Lily begged me to take her while she entered rehab again. I was 22, juggling law school and living in a tiny apartment. But I couldn't let Emma go into foster care. So, I took her in. For 5 years, Lily and her boyfriend cycled through periods of getting clean and relapsing. I became Emma's legal guardian, and every time Lily asked to take her back, I insisted she and her boyfriend pass a drug test. They never did. When Emma was 6, Lily got pregnant again. This time, she stayed clean and worked hard to rebuild her life. Slowly, Emma transitioned back to living with her parents. We attended family therapy for a year, and I retained weekend custody. Now, Lily is pregnant again. She and her husband recently decided Emma shouldn't spend weekends with me anymore, claiming she acts like a brat when she comes home. I understand their frustration. Emma goes from being the center of attention at my house to competing with her younger brother and dealing with her mom's morning sickness. I offered to take her brother for weekends too, or restart family therapy, but Lily refused. After 2 missed weekends, I told Lily I would take the matter to court. She accused me of throwing her past in her face and not letting her be a real mother. I love Emma as if she were my own child. She calls me every evening, asking why she can't come over. I just want what's best for her. Am I wrong for enforcing our custody agreement? A tumultuous journey. Fighting for Emma and finding strength. Let me start by saying I love Emma deeply and unconditionally. I've been in her life since the day she was born, and while our relationship has faced challenges, I've always done my best to prioritize her happiness and well-being. Recently, I've been grappling with an incredibly difficult situation regarding Emma and my sister Lily. This is about more than just custody. It's about protecting Emma from the instability and manipulation that has defined too much of her young life. If this were truly about my sister and her husband wanting to spend time with Emma, I would absolutely step aside. But their behavior suggests this isn't about bonding with her. It's about controlling my role in her life. Over the past few weekends, they sent Emma's younger brother to my parents' house to unwind, and Emma has often been sent to her grandparents. Yet, when I request time with her, it becomes an issue. Why is it different when it's me spending time with her? I've always encouraged Emma to maintain a relationship with her parents and siblings, but it feels like their actions are more about tearing us apart than fostering connections. My sister struggles, and my role in Emma's life, my sister, Lily, is a stay-at-home mom. She doesn't work. And while that might suggest she has ample time to focus on her kids, the reality is very different. Her home is often in disarray, a chaotic environment that mirrors her own struggles. Years ago, my parents bought her a house, hoping it would help her regain stability and custody of Emma. For a time, it seemed like she was on the right path. Her husband, who works in IT, was contributing financially, and they appeared to be holding things together. But appearances can be deceiving. In contrast, I've taken on a significant role in Emma's life. I drive her to karate, swimming lessons, and Girl Scouts each week. I ensure she stays active and engaged in positive activities that build her confidence and social skills. I'm in constant contact with her, checking in to make sure she's doing well. It's not just about keeping her busy, it's about giving her a sense of stability and purpose. Emma deserves to know she's supported, loved, and capable of achieving anything. Unfortunately, my brother-in-law's history of substance abuse has cast a shadow over their household. He's relapsed twice in the past 3 years, though, to their credit, he was removed from the home each time to protect Emma. Still, the knowledge that he has struggled with addiction lingers in my mind, fueling my concerns about the environment Emma is living in. Concerns about Emma's well-being recently. Some comments from friends and family made me question whether everything was truly okay at home for Emma. The idea that something might be amiss scared me enough to take action. I reached out to the therapist Emma used to see and scheduled an emergency session. These sessions always start with Emma speaking privately with her therapist, followed by a joint discussion where we address any concerns together. During the session, I made it clear to Emma that I will always have time for her and will always want her in my life. I also asked her an important question. Is she happy living with her parents, or would she prefer spending more time with me? Her answer broke my heart and confirmed my worst fears. There were things happening at home that I hadn't fully understood. Custody arrangements and lingering guilt. Custody has been a complicated journey for us. When Emma was 3, my sister began reasserting herself in her life. We transitioned custody slowly, first giving Lily weekends for a year, then moving to a 50-by-50 split, and eventually shifting Emma's primary residence to her parents while I had weekends. Despite this, Emma continued to view me as her mom. My sister struggled with this, and I can't blame her. She carries immense guilt for not being there during Emma's early years, and she's been trying hard to make up for lost time. But the cracks in their household began to show when my sister got pregnant again. At first, Emma loved having a little brother and even started calling Lily mom for the first time. However, this also marked the beginning of behavioral issues. When Emma returned from weekends with me, she would resist her parents' rules for days. By the time my sister felt Emma was back on track, it was time for another weekend with me, perpetuating a cycle of conflict and frustration. Lily has admitted to feeling jealous of my bond with Emma and my ability to provide for her financially. While she views it as spoiling, I see it as giving Emma the life she deserves. I take pride in ensuring Emma has access to opportunities and experiences that help her grow. The disparity in our parenting styles doesn't help. While I focus on keeping Emma active and limiting screen time, my sister's household lacks structure and discipline. It's no surprise Emma gravitates toward the stability I provide. Shocking revelations and a turning point. The emergency therapy session revealed something I hadn't anticipated. Lily had been manipulating Emma's perception of me. She told Emma that I never wanted her, that I only took her in out of obligation, and that I gave her back as soon as I could. This couldn't be further from the truth. Yes, I hesitated to take Emma in at first. I was a broke law student, living in a tiny apartment and barely managing my own life. But once I made the decision, I poured everything I had into giving Emma a loving and stable home. After learning about this manipulation, I filed for an emergency custody order. I cited parental alienation and also brought up my sister's marijuana use, which violated the conditions of her custody agreement. When CPS investigated, they found more than just marijuana. They discovered a drug lab in the basement where my brother-in-law was growing marijuana and psychedelic mushrooms. Both my sister and her husband were arrested, and CPS removed Emma and her younger brother from their care. Becoming a parent to 3 children, I now have full custody of Emma, her younger brother, and their newborn sibling. The transition hasn't been easy, but I'm committed to giving these kids the stability and love they deserve. Emma is thriving. She's happier than I've ever seen her, and I'm so proud of how she's adjusting to her new normal. The baby is healthy, and while my 3-year-old nephew is still processing the changes, we're working through it together with the help of family therapy. Gaining custody wasn't just about protecting Emma. It was about ensuring all 3 children have a safe and nurturing environment. My sister signed away her parental rights in exchange for my financial support in her legal battle. While I don't condone her actions, I understand the pain and desperation that led her to this point. I only hope she can find a path to healing. Reflections and moving forward, this experience has been both heartbreaking and eye-opening. I've had to make tough decisions and face criticism from people who don't fully understand the situation. My relationship with my parents is strained. They initially supported Lily, believing I was overstepping, but as the truth came to light, they began to see things differently. Even so, I've chosen to take a step back from that relationship for now. I'm overwhelmed and sleep deprived, and I need to focus on the kids and their future. Despite the challenges, I have no regrets. Emma, her brothers, and I are building a life together, one filled with love, stability, and hope. I'm grateful to everyone who encouraged me to trust my instincts and fight for these children. Without your support, I shudder to think what could have happened. As I move forward, I'm reminded of the resilience and strength it takes to navigate such a complex and emotional journey. These children deserve a bright future, and I'm determined to give them everything they need to thrive. This is just the beginning of a new chapter for our family, a chapter defined by love, healing, and unwavering support.